When African American slaves were abandoned by their plantation owners on the Sea Islands of South Carolina, as the Union took over, a program was made to help them and to teach the slaves that they were now free and they can become independent. This program was called the Port Royal Experiment, and here we'll be learning about it from Story of America cards category, the Civil War. So let's begin. The Port Royal Experiment was a program that began during the American Civil War, in which former slaves successfully worked on the land abandoned by planters. In 1861, the Union captured the Sea Islands off the coast of South Carolina in their main port, Port Royal. The white residents fled, leaving behind 10,000 black slaves. Several private Northern charity organizations stepped in to help the former slaves become self-sufficient. The result was a model of what Reconstruction could have been. The African Americans demonstrated their ability to work the land efficiently and live independently of white control. They assigned themselves daily tasks for cotton growing and spent their extra time cultivating their own crops, fishing, and hunting. By selling their surplus crops, the locals required small amounts of property. On the Atlantic coast between Charleston, South Carolina, and Savannah, Georgia, lie a group of islands known as Sea Islands of South Carolina, the largest of which is Port Royal. On November 7, 1861, just as the Civil War begun, a Union fleet under Commodore Samuel Francis DuPont attacked these islands, but by the time the Navy had landed, all had fled. The Navy found only deserted mansions and 10,000 slaves, who represented 80% of the pre-invasion population. Now these people had been suddenly abandoned, with no one to guide them in gathering the cotton crop that would soon need harvesting. It was clear to Union leaders, including Secretary of Treasury Salmon P. Chase, that unless something were done quickly, the support of these 10,000 slaves would fall to the Union. Chase therefore sent Edward L. Pierce, a young attorney from Boston, Massachusetts, to investigate the situation. When Pierce saw the islands and spoke with the abandoned slaves, he convinced the idea of helping these people find a new life. Returning to Boston, Pierce fired the imaginations of a number of others, including many abolitionists, and soon he had a band of young men and women eager to return with him to the islands. Their goal was to help the blacks bring in and sell the cotton crop, and provide to the world that blacks could earn equal livingship with whites. The young 53 young volunteers, many were, in fact, clergymen, were nicknamed Gideonites by the Union soldiers who garrisoned Port Royal. These 41 men and 12 women earnestly desired to build churches for the blacks, teach them to read and write, and do what they could to prepare the free men to become self-supporting citizens. The Gideonites set up schools, distributed land, established a political system, and even trained some of the slaves to be soldiers. The worst problem they faced was the lack of farming experience. Although they managed to overcome this, after the Civil War, some of the land on the Sea Islands was restored to its former owners. But the Port Royal Experiment, which had been closely watched by the federal government, helped to shape Reconstruction policy. As a result, many blacks were able to keep the land that has since been passed down from generation to generation as a proud Civil War heritage. With this bonus entry, I'm going to talk about the Sea Islands of South Carolina where the Port Royal Experiment took place. as what can be found on Wikipedia from the Port Royal experiment to estimate the number of plantations open to cultivation and for the people there, the slaves abandoned by the white owners were protected by the United States. The number of the islands that are protected and number of plantation on them come up to this. For Port Royal, where the program gets its name from, there are about 65 plantations. Ladies Island had 30. Perry and Horse Island had 6. Cat and Crane Island both only had 1 plantation for each. Thata Island had 4. Coosaw Island and Morgan Island both had 2. St. Helena Island had 50. Hilton Head Island had 16. Pinckney Island had 5. Bull and Beretta Island had 2. The Fusky Island had 5. And finally, Hutchinson and Frederick Islands had 6. This leaves a total of 195. That's a lot. The other sea islands, Otter, Pitchford, Flip, Hunting, and Phillips, Lemon, and Dawn, do not have plantations. And that was the Port Royal experiment. I hope you got to learn more about the program, and I'll see you next time in my other videos, including all of the Story of America cards up to right now.